You're going to San Diego Comic-Con 2024. I, as previously said, I'm here with the biggest name in DC Comics, Tim Sheridan. How you doing, Tim? Hey, so hey, I'm doing great. Doing great. Thank you for having me, Jimmy. The, the name is not that long. If you mean the biggest name, like there are longer names. So, it's long, it's longer than the name Mark Waid. That's only like 8 letters. So, yeah, medium stuff. If we need that, let's talk about Alan Scott Planner. Let's start there. In my humble opinion, absolutely nailing that story. This arc, it will eventually be up there with The Dark Knight Returns, and as far as redefining a character for a new generation. And I want to ask you, so it's sort of a retcon, but it's just everything is put into place so it doesn't change anything. What are the challenges involved in putting together those puzzle pieces?
I think one of the weirdest challenges is the word retcon.
Right.
It's taken on such negative connotation with a lot of fans, but really it's not. It doesn't necessarily mean all the things that people want it to mean. Yeah, technically there's a retcon involved. The thing is, in our story, our 6-issue Alan Scott the Green Lantern wasn't where the retcon that people refer to happened. It happened back in Infinite Frontier.
Right.
It's just that there hadn't been a book exploring Alan Scott's story after he came out of the closet.
You're the retcon you're referring to the coming in.
Well, that was the big one that a lot of people reference when they talk about it. Now, there are other retcons involved in the whole thing. For instance, the biggest one is the fact that we introduced a Golden Age nemesis for the Green Lantern, the Red Lantern. And the conceit for that, which was, Jeff Johns came up with it, was that this character had been, among other characters, removed from time, removed completely, and now had been reinserted back into the timeline. And so now we were getting to see how the story would play out with them in it. The comics we've been reading all these years didn't have them in it. So we were seeing a different version of the story. So there is sort of there's a retcon there too. But it's comics. So it could all be, for all I know, next year it could be another universe. I don't
retcon again.
Yeah.
For me, retcon is more like Obi-Wan did know Chewie, but didn't say anything to that effect, right? The whole time in it, so
right. And yeah, there are all sorts of things. Look, sometimes that can really work to your advantage. One of the things I really, really felt strongly about doing, and this was again because I had just come off of working on Flashpoint Beyond with Jeff Johns. I had the best time. Jeremy Adams, I'll speak for Jeremy too, because we both, I know, had the time of our lives working on that book with Jeff. And there's something that guy does and has done well and did well when he was at DC, which is reaching back into the canon and pulling a lot of different threads that didn't seem to all tie together and tying them together in a neat bow that made you feel like, oh, it was always supposed to be this way. And there were so many weird little parts of Alan Scott's story and his origin and his time and his canon that didn't quite agree with each other. So I loved the idea of going in like, a puzzle and trying to figure out how we can make some of those things work. The first one was the fact that he had such weird powers. One of them was that he could walk through walls.
Yeah.
And in the Golden Age, they described it as moving through the fourth dimension. But today, we're savvy about sci-fi stuff, and we talk about the fourth dimension, we're talking about time. So I said, well, how can I make that make sense? How can we call that a cousin of time travel? And so we figured out a way to do that in a way that doesn't change the canon and doesn't reestablish anything, doesn't reblend anything, but gives us an explanation for why that's the case. And for me, that as a reader, that stuff is really satisfying.
Yeah.
It's very much me trying to do a check job.
That's the genius, if I may, of that story, of your writing, of this particular book, and everything. But in this particular,
let's talk more about my genius.
You just flesh it out. You add to it. You don't change anything. You don't change anything that's come before. Just adding out, putting it together.
When you get to issue 5 of our story, it only happens over the course of a couple of pages. But they're jam packed, those pages with balloons. And I'm sorry, but I had limited space, and we just laid it out and said, here is the origin of Alan's powers. Here's how the powers relate to the powers of the Green Lantern Corps. Why they're not so different. Why they have a common ancestry. And that stuff is so satisfying. It feels like it feels like we're not adding any new information to the lore, but we're adding a new understanding to it. And that's it. It's fun to read. It's definitely fun to write. And at the heart of it, we're doing that stuff as a backdrop to ultimately what is a love story, which is the story that we set out to tell.
Which let's follow up on that. So the romance early on with Red Lantern,
The spoiler.
well, if you haven't read it by now, I don't know why.
If you haven't read it right now, you should pick up
You are no fan.
the trade paperback in September.
Okay, yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there.
I'm going to say it a bunch of times.
Please, September
24th.
24th, same thing. It's got the Green Lantern collecting all 6 issues of the Master.
Plus the 6-page on-ramp story, right, that we did earlier in prior to the years. So that's going to be in there too.
Right. How much does your life influence this romance story? How much of the love letters, dates, what the French call, I don't know what. How much is this love story you?
Well, look, I'm a queer man. There's the pieces of the love story that are about Alan and Vladimir coming to terms with their identity. Those are real honest things that I've gone through and felt in my life growing up in the place that I grew up at the time that I wasn't around in 1936, 1941 when this happened. But I'll tell you, the story, my coming of age story has so many similarities to Alan's, and that was in the 90s. There are kids today who still have very similar stories to mine and to Alan's. So unfortunately, in many ways, like we've made so much progress, but there are still these touch points that I think a lot of people understand, and it's not just LGBTQIA plus people. I think everybody understands what it's like, to have a kind of star-crossed love.
Sure.
We all know
One that got away.
something that maybe is not what everybody else wants you to be doing, at the time. So I think it's something everybody can kind of identify with. Unfortunately, there's a lot of history and a lot of horrific history that goes along with the experience of Alan and men like Alan during his time, 30s and 40s. And we had to be honest about that. I mean, I was clear about that from the very beginning, that look, we're not going to shy away from it. This is a story about a man coming out of the darkness into the light, and then becoming a beacon of that light for the whole world. And in order to tell that story, start in a dark place. And there are some real dark, real honest things that we can draw upon that really happen still to this day, not just in 1930s, the 1940s. And so let's be honest about it. And I think when we're honest and we tell our stories to each other, and we listen honestly, we find the similarities. Even if our particular circumstances are different, we still hear the human similarities between us. And I think that's how we learn. And that's the point of stories. I think we all learn about each other, and we all get better. The world gets better. Not that I'm out here trying to solve problems for the whole world and make the world a better place. I just think that TV and movies, and especially comics, are a place where we can talk to each other with our hearts. And when we change each other's hearts, we change each other's minds. We have to do the hard thing first.
So that's kind of what I want to ask you, the importance of telling these stories out to people. Like how important is that to them to have representation in these books today?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think DC is doing a great job of being very inclusive. I think showcasing a lot of diversity with all sorts of different initiatives, and also not just at the time of year when corporations like to There's a lot of corporations out there who check the box on a particular month, and say, hey, look, here's our commitment to your community. DC's doing it all year round, and they have been. And Alan Scott's a great example. Um, and so, and also, they're doing a great job of telling stories that are joyous and colorful and exciting and hopeful, which is important for my community and the young generation in my community. And here's what we got to do that a lot of folks in comics aren't getting to do, which is we got to tell a story that still is hopeful, that still is about an enduring love that will never go away. But also we got to show the darker side of it, which is honest and which is true, and which queer readers understand, because they're seeing themselves reflected in these pages. They're seeing their pieces of your story in these pages because it's honest, And so that's important for everybody. We all deserve to feel represented. We all deserve to feel seen. Now, so it's important for LGBTQIA+ to read these stories. And it's not just about, the Pride celebrations, which are great, but also our history is much more complex than parades and flags. It's, there are so many stories that need to be told to the younger generation of queer readers, but especially to our straight friends and allies, and those on the other side of the spectrum who maybe don't understand us well, maybe aren't trying as much to understand it, meet us on a level playing field. I think this book, there are people who should read the Alan Scott story who don't think they would ever want to read that story. Or say, I don't want to pick that up. That doesn't have anything to do with me. I'm telling you right now, if you can sweep aside all the particulars of the things you don't personally identify with in the story, there is stuff in there that you will identify with. Mm-hmm. And that's when you realize that we're not so different. And so it's important for young kids in my community, but it's also important for everybody. Let's just all tell each. I've been hearing stories about people whose life experiences are very different from mine all my life, and I love those stories. And I always pick out stuff that does apply to my life, and it enriches the whole experience. I encourage everyone else to do the same.
Alan Scott, The Green Lantern, trade paperback, September 24th. It's a gateway story.
Thank you very much.
No, do the sales reflect that? I don't have.
I think from everything they told me, we beat forecasts on the monthly books, which was incredible. And those new Golden Age books were something people were really excited about. So
I can't gush enough about this story. You've seen what I mentioned online before, and I really think it's the best story I've read on. I mean, in a long time, even not just this. Not this year. It will incredibly stand the test.
Incredibly kind. I really thank you so much, and thank you for letting me talk a little bit more about it.
Oh no, it's honestly the pleasure is totally on this side of the table. Let me ask you a little bit about your journey here to Comic-Con. I read that you used to work in schools at Comic-Con.
I did.
Worked your way up to star status.
Let me tell you, my experience of San Diego Comic-Con started in the year 2000, the first year I ever came to the show. And I had just moved to Los Angeles. And on a whim, on a Sunday, a friend and I in LA said, let's just drive down to San Diego and see if we can get a ticket and get in. And those were the days when you could.
One of the last ones.
Yeah. So we did. And we were just here on a Sunday. And it was a wonderland. And it was tons. It was comics. It was all comics. Great. And I was a fan attendee for many years. And then I spent a few years, I got a job working for Mattel, the toy company. I was a pitch man, kind of a demo guy. While I was trying to get my writing career going, to pay the bills, I would go out and host games and show people how to play different Mattel games. Yeah. So I had to do the San Diego Comic-Con show several years. So I was like, a carnival barker in the booth, doing my thing. So I had that relationship. I was working all day on my feet all day, just like that was intense work. You don't know what these folks who work these booths, what they're putting themselves through. It's a physical endurance test. They're incredible. and so I did that, and then I got to come back now as a comic book creator, as a television and film writer. I get to sort of sign autographs and sign books and promote the stuff that we're doing. It is like it's these three different distinct eras at Comic-Con for me. And I've loved every single one. And throughout all of them, I'm still walking around trying to find deals on action pictures.
Yeah. Let's bring this plane in for a landing, Tim. I appreciate your time. I know you're a busy guy. You got a gig for you.
I gotta go host the show. Yeah.
Right. So let me wrap it up with, when I was a young man, I used to have to get super early on Saturday mornings to beat my brother to get a good spot in front of him. Watch the cartoons.
Yeah.
But I have to get up earlier than that to beat my parents in the kitchen, pour myself a big bowl of sugar goodness to get to the day. So Tim Sheridan, right here, buddy. What's your favorite bowl of Saturday morning cereal? What cartoons did you watch as a young man?
This is gonna be so embarrassing. You're gonna learn so much about me right now. Let me tell you about the cartoons first. I mean, He-Man and She-Ra. All day, by the way, every day of the week, not just Saturday mornings. Transformers and G.I. Joe all the time. Smurfs, you name it. I was the kid who watched the Friday night preview of what the new cartoons were going to be that season. So excited for what they were going to be. I'd watch every bad tie-in or adaptation of the Punky Brewster cartoon, anything like that. I was into
Rubik's Cube.
Rubik. What was it called? Rubik. Oh, I forget the title. Anything like that. Dungeons and Dragons was amazing. But the cereal is where I'm gonna lose everybody. I have never in my life enjoyed sugary cereals. So I was never a kid with a bowl of Trix or Lucky Charms. I was always the kid with a bowl of grape nuts. or if I really had a sweet tooth, cornflakes.
Now, did you, as a child, were you in a big bathrobe smoking a pipe while you were having big space?
Bran flakes. I ate bran flakes.
You like them?
I loved them.
That's what it's all about. Ella Scott, Greenland, September 24th.
Yeah. I really hope I got that date right.
We'll find out.
We'll put it on
Great paperback. Don't miss it. Tim, thanks so much for taking the time. San Diego Comic-Con 2024. Enjoy the rest of it and enjoy your day.
Thank you, man.
Oh, thank you.